Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
The boss of Ryanair has said he's sorry for messing up after the budget airline announced it was cancelling more than 2,000 flights over the next 6 weeks. Michael O'Leary blamed problems allocating leave for his pilots. Compensation and other costs could leave Ryanair with a bill of more than £20 million. His apology comes after growing anger from passengers, some of whom have been left stranded abroad. Our transport correspondent Richard Westcott reports.
Dozens of last-minute cancellations. Thousands of unhappy passengers. 3 days on, what's Ryanair's boss got to say?
This is our mess up. When we make a mess in Ryanair, we come out with our hands up. We try to explain why we've made the mess, and when we will pay compensation to those passengers who are entitled to compensation, which will be those flights that are cancelled over the next 2 weeks.
He flatly denies a shortage of pilots is also to blame. But that's not what a number of current Ryanair pilots have told the BBC today. They talk of a large backlog in training because there aren't enough simulators and staff, of colleagues leaving in droves because they don't like the way they're treated. One said the company was appalling at making staff feel valued. Last year alone, 140 pilots left Ryanair for rival Norwegian. This is the UK base for Ryanair, Stansted Airport. Now, there have been 17 cancellations today as a result of these changes. There'll be 11 tomorrow, 15 the next day, and so on for weeks. Passengers have been venting on social media. Neil says he'll never book with Ryanair again because they've been left to their own devices. Kira says the company's emailed her about car hire and accommodation. She just wants to know she'll make her sister's wedding.
Ryanair left me stranded in Krakow, gave me no option to get home in a reasonable time, so I took matters into my own hand and spent 500 quid for tickets for myself, my partner, and my mother to get back to London on another carrier. We're about halfway through what's going to be an all-day journey involving a taxi and 2 planes, and it's been a really frustrating experience. Frustrating and costly.
Pretty disappointed about it. I mean, even if they gave me a week's longer notice, it would have been much better for me, but they didn't. They texted me the evening before the morning I was supposed to fly out. So yeah, pretty disappointed, lost a holiday out of it, and lost some money as well.
Ryanair is now under pressure to make it easy for people to get some money back.
They shouldn't quibble over the statutory compensation that people are owed, and they should just give it back straight away, rather than waiting for people to have to fight for their compensation.
Ryanair says it'll all be over by November, but one current pilot told me he fears a repeat next summer unless the company gets better at keeping its staff.
And we're going to talk to Richard now. Richard, the Ryanair's boss has taken responsibility, but is that enough to reassure passengers, frankly, felt they've been left in the lurch?
Well, I mean, they have actually admitted it was their fault. That's a good thing. And also they've come on today and said, look, the 98% of flights aren't going to be affected. They were stressing that point as well. And they've addressed the thing that was really making people angry over the weekend. And that was that they only announced which flights were going to be cancelled up until Wednesday. So bad enough you're getting last-minute cancellations, but people who'd booked a week, 2 weeks in advance didn't know if their flights were going to be cancelled. They've announced all of the cancelled flights now up to the end of October. Now, if your flight is cancelled, you could be entitled to some compensation, and Ryanair are obliged to tell you what your rights are. So it'll be on the website, should be in the email they send you as well about your cancelled flight. They've been very good today at putting their hands up and saying, OK, yeah, we messed up, we're sorry. So people are now going to be watching to see if they are as good at helping people who've been affected.
All right, Richard, thank you very much.
For thousands of passengers whose longed-for holiday is now likely to get no further than the carousel at Stansted Airport, an apology from the Ryanair boss, Michael O'Leary, will probably not cut much ice, but he certainly did give one today. We messed up, he said, over pilot holiday rosters. Tonight, his airline published a list of the affected flights, and there were an awful lot of them. The company has set aside a chunky £18 million to pay in compensation.
These were just today's cancelled Ryanair flights. The airline that expects us to trust it with our holiday plans has made a mess of its own. A backlog of crew leave is one reason for these mass cancellations. This afternoon, breathless with apologies, Ryanair's boss faced the cameras.
So, yeah, I mean, has this been one of the greatest days in Ryanair's history? No. Have we messed this up? Yes, we have. For that, I sincerely apologise. And have we suffered reputational damage? Yes, we have.
Posts on social media have lambasted the airline. Thousands will never fly with you again. Holidays ruined due to uncertainty, and tips for flying with Ryanair: don't.
I say sorry on behalf of Ryanair. I say we want to put our hands up, which is what we do when we make a mess, and we will try to learn from the mistakes we've made in this case.
Up to 52 Ryanair flights a day will be cancelled for the next 6 weeks. As many as 400,000 passengers will be affected. The airline is expecting to pay up to £18 million in compensation and to lose up to around £4.5 million in profits. But Ryanair says less than 2% of its scheduled 2,500 daily services will be impacted.
Chaos.
It was chaos.
Absolute chaos.
5 members of the same family arrived at Bristol Airport with just 3 hours' notice, found they wouldn't be going to Malaga.
To try and get 5 of us on a flight, we tried for 3 hours.
The problem was there were 280 other people at that airport trying to get a flight out to Malaga at the same time.
As it removes flights from its busy schedule, Ryanair has tonight issued new lists of all those affected.
We do think that compensation in these matters should be automatic. Ryanair will know, for instance, when you ring up and rebook with them, whether you're entitled to compensation, and why not just give it to you there and then on the phone rather than making you jump through hoops to get it.
This may improve punctuality, but many passengers struggle to see how a cancelled flight is better than a late one, as tonight the airline known for cutting costs gets a new reputation for cutting flights. Chris Choi, News at 10.
Ryanair shares have lost 7% of their value in the last week, most of which is down to the cost of cancellations caused by a mistake in allocating holiday time to pilots and other employees. It is a pain for all employers having to accommodate staff leave, but it doesn't normally cause quite such business disruption. Making matters worse, though, is the cast iron law of the aviation business that if anything goes wrong, it will get maximum publicity. Just ask United Airlines, or indeed British Airways, who had IT problems back in June. Well, so it is with Ryanair. The chief executive, Michael O'Leary, has been trying to limit the damage, perhaps better than some other chief executives, but our business editor, Helen Thomas, reports.
Welcome. You have arrived on yet another Ryanair flight.
Never shy in trumpeting its achievements, Ryanair is known for a no-nonsense attitude.
These airlines can't match our prices. They can't match our service either.
And it starts at the top with boss Michael O'Leary.
We need fewer people queuing to go to the toilet. How do you get fewer people queuing to go to the toilet? Charge them for it.
The Irish airline has become a management case study in industry disruption, aggressive pricing and stratospheric growth. From a standing start in 1985 with 1 aircraft, 1 route and 5,000 passengers, Ryanair has grown to be Europe's biggest airline. It carried 120 million passengers last year.
It was seen as a bit of an irritant, a bit of an annoying kind of player, somebody who made a lot of noise. And it really took a long time. It really snuck up on the other airlines, the fact that they offered cheap flights, but that they continued to offer them. They thought these were just a sale that they would announce every now and again. But the sales kept continuing and continuing. So it became clear then that this actually was a business model.
The Irish airline is cancelling up to 50 flights daily for the next 6 weeks, or about 2% of its schedule. The airline's punctuality had already fallen from its usual 90% average to below 80% this month. Why? Strikes in air traffic control, the weather, and significantly a shortage of crew. Today, the boss was characteristically forthright.
Okay. When we make a mess in Ryanair, we come out with our hands up. We try to explain why we've made the mess, and when we will pay compensation to those passengers who are entitled to compensation.
Ryanair managed to upend the industry because it focuses on every cost, but that efficiency means very little slack when things go wrong. OK, so the Irish regulator forced Ryanair to change how it manages staff holiday, and that's caused problems. But ultimately, the airline doesn't have enough crew or pilots to man all its planes. As Ryanair and rivals have expanded, it's the Irish airline that has cut too close for comfort.
If we look at where the growth in the short-haul market is in Europe, it's through what I call the momentum airlines. Others call them the low-cost airlines. And as they take significant numbers of new aircraft, they're going to need pilots. And the classic example we've just seen is obviously Norwegian with its base in Dublin, but we're seeing expansion by others in other markets too. So they will bid up the price of pilots, and the pilots will move perhaps from Ryanair, perhaps from other carriers, to go to where they see a new opportunity.
Norwegian says it's hired 140 Ryanair pilots this year. Never one to agree with a rival, Ryanair says it's under 100. It denies a shortage of pilots. So why cancel 6 weeks of flights rather than try a short-term fix? Well, with Ryanair, it always pays to think about the bottom line. Take a look at EU 261, or the rules about flight compensation. A delay of 3 hours or more could mean payouts of €250 per passenger. A cancellation at short notice is the same unless the airline can offer a suitable alternative. Cancelled with more than 2 weeks' notice? Well, you just get a refund. And Ryanair's average fare is just €40. Better business, perhaps, to axe flights well ahead rather than risk further delays or last-minute cancellations. Then there's Ryanair's reputation to think of. It may be cheap, but the airline likes to boast that it's more punctual than rivals and that it cancels fewer flights. Passengers counting every euro might stay with them. But what about those higher value business travellers that Ryanair has increasingly been courting? Well, there, the idea that Ryanair's unreliable could hurt. Ryanair likes to use its business acumen to unseat and upset rivals. For now, it will be needed to shuffle disgruntled passengers onto new flights. In other words, damage limitation.
Helen Thomas there.